President Joe Biden called for unity in his inauguration speech, but that's going to be hard to achieve with the two-party system. That's what Robert Gehrke from the Salt Lake Tribune says in his column today. Robert joins us via Zoom to talk about the two-party system we have right now and what needs to change.
And Robert, so you say it just doesn't seem like we can have unity. Why not?
Well, I think we've seen over the last several years, we've seen this increased polarization and partisanship, especially in Washington. And it's made it really difficult, almost impossible to actually govern. And we saw that with the coronavirus relief package that bogged down for months in partisan squabbling. And I think it's a real problem in American politics that's sort of built into the system at this point, that people don't feel represented because we're not either Democrat or Republican. We're not donkey or elephant. It's not that there's not that strict, hardcore dichotomy there. And I think it would be beneficial, and one of the things I point to in the column is President Trump, since leaving office, has floated this idea of a patriot party. And I'm not saying that that's the solution to all of our political problems, but I think if we had a multi-party system, if we had viable third or even fourth parties, to give people more choices, someplace where they might feel at home, and someplace that forces the parties to come to some consensus on big issues and form coalitions, I think it would really foster a better working government and more confidence in our government system.
You know, Robert, you're not the only one with that opinion. I mean, it's been put out there many times over hundreds of years. I mean, from the Whig Party to the Copperheads to the Constitutionists to the Green Party, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it keeps on coming back to these two major parties. How do you think we can branch out at this point if it keeps on just organically coming back to this?
Yeah, I mean, you make an excellent point, because it's almost unusual that we don't have viable third parties, that we haven't really had one since Ross Perot, I guess you would say. I think the reason it keeps coming back to it is because the two parties that control the system, control the rules, control the money, make rules and decisions that benefit themselves. And it's really hard for a third party. We've seen it with the United Utah Party, for example. Until you get some power, you don't get money. And without money, you can't get your candidates out in front of people. You can't get on the debate stage. And also, we've got this situation across the country where partisan state legislators draw partisan political boundaries to benefit their partisan friends, and it creates a really partisan Congress. And so it sort of feeds on itself, and that's why it's so difficult for anybody to punch through. I mean, we've seen, I mentioned the Ross Perot run. We've seen candidates with a lot of name recognition or a lot of money make a dent, but those can't be sustained beyond that individual candidate. And so that's why maybe the Trump idea has some merit, or at least some hope of success, because presumably he has access to money and he's got name recognition, he has a built-in base. But beyond that, you've really got to do a lot of laying the groundwork for a big political party, and the deck is definitely stacked against them.
Yeah, well, when you talk about laying the groundwork, and obviously change is going to be gradual, what structurally needs to happen if you want to see a change to the two-party system?
I mean, I think that's the big question, and it's an excellent question. I talked to the head of the United Utah Party in Utah, and their goal is to kind of just keep chipping away year after year, cycle after cycle, build the volunteer base. But keep in mind, they've only got a few thousand members in that party compared to over 600,000 in the Republican Party in Utah. So I think we're at a bit of a crossroads right now, because there is disenchantment among Republicans and the Trump Republicans. There's some disenchantment among the Bernie Democrats and the McAdams Democrats, for lack of a better word, the Blue Dogs. And then in Utah in particular, I think we're primed for something like this because we have such a large number of unaffiliated voters, people who don't feel at home with either party. And I think that's sort of a harbinger, a signal of the problem that we've got. Going back to last election cycle, I encouraged former Governor John Huntsman to run as an independent because I didn't think he could win in the Republican Party, which he couldn't, but also just because I think, again, he had the name recognition, he had the money, he could have really made a dent. But again, to build a long-term movement, it's going to take a lot more commitment. It's going to take multiple years, and it's going to take changing the rules, frankly. Public funding of campaigns, I think, would go a long ways to do that. But again, there's not really an appetite to do that because the two major parties that control the rules benefit from the system as it is.
Well, you make some really good points, some really valid points here, Robert, but Yeah, as you said here, it is going to take a long time if there's going to be a change. Because right now, all it does, if you've got a second or third party candidate, all it does is fracture the main parties and make one over the other of the two big parties. So it is a tough system right now, I know. Robert Gehrke's column is at saltlaketribune.com. We want to talk more, but we don't have any time. So you're going to have to read the column. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it.